what I have found is that majority of my students are still having difficulties understanding exponents. There are a lot of misconceptions about how to multiply a base in the exponent, how to use the distributive property with exponents. Anything dealing with the power of zero is a problem with some of the students. They just do not understand it. And also when it comes to negatives and exponents, many of them still believe that a negative on an exponent and a negative on a number are equal. You're going to get the same answer. All right, so based on the standards for 7th grade in reference to exponents, I'm using standard 7.ns.2a, and I'm extending that standard to 7.ns.3. Students will understand that multiplication is extended from fractions to rational numbers. They will also use the distributive property in order to answer such problems. And this standard is focused on in the 7th grade, and they will extend their knowledge of the properties of exponents when they get to the 8th grade as well. And that standard is for the 8th grade is 8.EE.A.1. And like I had mentioned before, there are a lot of misconceptions, and I'm going to start with the first one in reference to exponent. The one that students really have, that still make mistakes with, is multiplying a base and an exponent. And when I begin my lessons with exponents, I always make sure to identify each part of the exponent. So even though we go through this, I still have students who will say that 2 to the 3rd power, for instance, is equal to 2 times 3. Instead of 2 to the 3rd power is equal to 2 times 2 times 2, which is equal to 8. So realizing that 2 to the 3rd power is 8 is something that students are still having problems with. They're still thinking that you are to multiply the base times the exponent to get the correct answer. Another problem that students are still having is using the distributive property. For the following problem, let's say I have 2 plus 4 to the 3rd power. Okay? Instead of saying, using your order of operations, we know that what is ever in the parentheses, we're going to solve that first and work outside of the parentheses. So instead of saying that this would be 2 plus 4, which is 6, to the 3rd power, and this would be 6 times 6 times 6. Students will say 2 plus 4 to the 3rd power is equal to 2 to the 3rd power plus 4 to the 3rd power. They're not using their knowledge of the distributive property. The answer should be 216. So we are still struggling with using the derivative property. 0, the power of 0. The power of 0. If I was to say 10 to the 0 power, I would expect my answer to be 1. Students will say that 0 to the 10th power is 0. So we still struggle with that misconception, and I review it all the time, and students will make that mistake. Another problem that I've seen, and I review it frequently with my students, is negative numbers. And I'm going to admit, sometimes I have to stop and think about the rules myself. The rules of multiplying exponents, just, I have to think about it myself, because there have been times that I have made a mistake when it comes to negative numbers. But for instance, negative 4 to second power. Some will say that it is 16. Negative 4 to the second power and negative 4 cubed is actually negative 16. You're saying the negative of 4 squared, or 4 to the second power. The negative of. I've reviewed, I've talked about using parentheses. When we use parentheses, the students can see it better. So when I give such problems, I usually, depending on how I want to write the problem, I will usually note these type of questions with parentheses. So I would say the negative, I would put the 4 in parentheses, and then I would get this answer. So if personally myself, being that I am an exceptional children's teacher and my background is not in math, this is one that I myself have difficulties with. So when I explain it to my students, I explain to them, why we made the mistake and what we can do about the mistake. But let's see, the negative, like 3 squared is negative 9. And then I tell them that you can say that negative 1 times 3 squared is going to give you negative 1 times 9. And by doing this, it's easier for me and for them to see that the correct answer would be negative 9. So, like I mentioned before, that misconception is something that I sometimes have a mistake with. But if you teach the students the correct way of solving it and model, then they will have a better understanding of how to solve such questions. But from my experiences this year, I've worked on a lot of misconceptions, but for all of the misconceptions, I would say that exponents, from my experience, exponents has been a big area in which students have had misconceptions on how to solve these problems. All right? Thank you very much.